Hello and welcome back to Oldhammer and Tongs, the YouTube channel where we talk about all things Oldhammer. So today we're going to look at this painting guide. This was given to me in a Games Workshop store in about 1990, 1991. Originally it was charged at 50p, but I think they cheekily snuck it into your bag when you bought things. So it was White Dwarf presents the Citadel Miniatures Painting Guide. As you can see from the front cover, it's got some exquisite miniatures inside. So I'm really excited to have a flick through with you now. So here we go. Let's crack it open. Oh, and here we go. We start off with an introduction by the man himself, John Blanche. So he was director, I think artistic director at Games Workshop at this point. He'd been with the company pretty much since the beginning. He'd been illustrating first edition Warhammer, heavily involved in Rogue Trader, and here he gives a really lovely introduction to the world of painting miniatures, basically saying go out there and have fun, which is very much the spirit of Oldhammer. And then there is a picture of this superb diorama that he created, an undead diorama where you can see the undead horde pouring across this bridge and attacking a dwarf stronghold. You can see some poor zombie has dropped in there and is being about to be eaten by a sea creature. There's a necromancer there who's applying his dark magic to burn down the gates. It's just brilliant. There is so much detail there to enjoy. And that painting style is so Blanchitsu. It's just so organic and flowing. Absolutely gorgeous. I've heard rumour that this is in Warhammer World. You can go and see it there. Please do shout out in the comments if that is total nonsense or if you've been to Warhammer World and seen it. I hope to get there myself one day. And if it is there, I will spend hours looking at it, just like I did look at this picture when I was a kid. So here we've got the introduction. It gives some very good advice. It basically says, take your time, have fun. Painting is there to be enjoyed. And it then has some more superb miniatures. I mean, that Blood Angels medic, I think is fantastic. I love that kind of, it's almost Space Wolf grey, isn't it? Quite bluey on the helmet, which contrasts really nicely with the reds. Some fabulous shading on top of that shoulder pad, and then that leg pad looks brilliant. I love the ultramarine as well. I'm not usually too bothered about ultramarines, but the slightly more weathered shading makes him look like a badass. Really awesome looking Ogren. I love that orc, he's so orcish. Champion of Khorne, very chaotic, and a very undead looking undead horseman. So then it hops into the how-tos. Now this is quite interesting if you're into your Games Workshop history, because at this point Citadel didn't create all of these accessories and products. So they've actually got competitors being advertised. So Milliput, they quite quickly started making their own putty. Polystyrene cement, they definitely started making their own poly cement. Super glue, all sorts. Back in these days, all they made was paints. And here we've got those original paint sets. So we've got the colour range, creature, monster, and expert. Expert was all inks at the time. So these are all the little bits and bobs that you as a painter will want. This painting guide also has these extraordinary little tips and pieces of advice from Golden Demon. So what's the first one? Golden Demon says, always use adhesives in a well-ventilated room. Now that is very good advice. Anyone who's used poly cement in a non-well-ventilated room will know how horrible it is. More wisdom from Golden Demon. Golden Demon says Citadel acrylic paint dries faster than enamel and is kinder to your brushes. So anyone who's ever used enamel paint will also know that is true. I started out using enamels and they are horrible. They stink. You have to use white spirit to wash them. They knacker your brushes. They're thick. They're glossy. Ugh. Anyway, fortunately, thing of the past for me. And for most others as well, I think. So yeah, a picture of Mike McVeigh there, looking extremely young. I mean, he still looks extremely young, but in the late 80s, I think he was only aged about, he was a late teen when he joined Games Workshop, so it would have been about that age. And there he is sitting down to do some painting, possibly a Space Marine, because he's got the chapter colours there. So here we go, preparing your model. So they talk about the importance of getting out your knife, chopping off any extra bits of lead, making sure it's nice and neat, ready to go. We've got another quote from the great Golden Demon here. Good preparation is essential for good quality miniatures. Always wash your hands after handling metal. Good advice. When using a knife, always cut it away from yourself. Gosh, it's a health and safety Golden Demon there. So, yeah, we've got another non-GW product being used here as a spray undercoat. Again, Guess they didn't make it at the time. And then we've got the wonders of putty for covering in gaps on lead models. You never know. And then Golden Demon, what do you got to say? A white undercoat on the model will make the colours appear brighter. A black undercoat can be used to create special armour effects. The paint rubs off more easily if the model hasn't been undercoated. Yes, I believe there is a movement of people who paint without undercoat, but I don't have the guts myself. I'm old-fashioned. I tend to use white myself, but these days people use all sorts of different colours. So here we go. We're going to have these models staying with us throughout the guide now at the different stages. So we've got the base coat. Now, one of the interesting things is that painting theory has kind of changed a bit since these days. So here they recommend starting with your bright colours on a base coat and then building up with the darker shades, whereas now I think they tend to say that you start with darker colours and then you sort of highlight up. But you can do what you want. So Golden Demon, what does he say here? So unless painting units of miniatures for both Warhammer Fantasy Battle, try not to have too many models on the go at once. The prospect of so many can seem rather daunting, and you'll end up leaving some unfinished. A bit of psychology there. Also, I love that skiing dwarf. He is brilliant. I think Old School Miniatures now makes some versions of them. So that is, oh my gosh, look at that. That Eldar High Avatar is just exquisite. Look at those colours. Absolutely magnificent. I love that Space Marine librarian. He actually looks like a librarian, but in Space Marine form. Now here, this colour table, I still use. It's just brilliant. So here's the colour you want, bright red. There's your base colour, red gore, dark shade, red ink, and then your highlight required. So red gore mixed with sunburst yellow or white. I just find this so useful, and it gives all sorts of different colours. And then all sorts of colour mixes to use. So yeah, it's brilliant. Thank you, painting table. So here we've got shading. So you can see these miniatures are really already looking fantastic. I would be delighted with that Space Wolf Terminator as it is. I wouldn't need to go any further and I'd be very happy with that. I love this wizard. He just looks brilliant, and Moody Blue is such a great colour. One of my all-time favourites. Golden Demon, he says, over-exaggerate the shadows and highlights on your model to bring out the detail. And then try to keep your work area as tight as possible. Very, very wise, very wise. So another thing here is there's some fantastic shading on that guy. Look, he's a Blood Bowl Ogre, I think. Was a troll, sorry, a troll. There's another section of this guide, I'm not quite sure where they actually sort of talk about the benefits of black line detail, which, black line detail is pretty unfashionable these days, but in those days they advocated for it, and why not? The miniatures look absolutely superb. Look at that. I don't really like Gene Stealers, but that page chart model has always blown me away, and it does look really awesome. So here, highlights, creating highlights. So it's got a little guide about dry brushing. Stick it in a pot, wipe it on a tissue. It always works well. These models are looking fabulous after a bit of dry brush action. Look at that wizard, is really coming to life. The Terminator again, looking really, really good. And then we've got adding the fine detail here. So, I think it's an advanced hero quest figure up there in the top left. That shield is excellent. He looks really good. I love the wizard. Magnificent. I love the little stripes at the bottom of his cloak. Those are great. And then I think these are again advanced hero quest figures, that wizard and that elf. They just look absolutely wonderful. I love all of them. Oh, Golden Demon. Use a separate pot of water to clean your brush after using metallic paint. This will stop flecks of metal paint appearing on other parts of your model. Spot on. So what have we got finally? So adding fine detail. So here we talk a bit more about fine detail. We've also got some more fabulous miniatures. That knight. Oh my god. Look at the shield design. It's just brilliant. And that thing on top of his helm. I'm not sure what it is, but I love it. Glorious. The Space Marine. Oh, I just love those Space Marines. They just look like sort of drugged up thugs, which is kind of what they are. And I love the Orc. And then here you get this special Orc painting guide, which also has a comical twist. Protecting the Orc's thick skull and hiding his repulsive features is what his helmet does. And then it gives you a little base colour, shading, colour and highlight. Face and skin, mean and green like all Orcs. So base colour, bilious green, again starting with the light colour. Shade with woodland green. highlight with bilious green and skull white. So I actually tried painting an orc like that, and it did look brilliant. A bit more yellow than I perhaps expected. But yeah, I thought it was great, rather than starting with the darker colour and moving lighter. So yeah, handy little guide there to painting your orcs. Here we've got all of the details you need for basing, which is basically a bit of PVA glue, bit of sand, and some lovely goblin green. Looks fantastic. So what do you got to say, Golden Demon? Last one from you. If you use your miniatures for gaming, a coat of varnish will help protect your paintwork. I'm sure that's true, but I just never had the guts to use varnish. So here we go. Finally, we end with this absolutely magnificent diorama. Pretty sure it's Mike McVeigh. Shout out in the comments if I'm wrong. But this is a squat stronghold under attack. We've got a bit of it cut off here in the picture, but you can see these pesky orcs are in. This fella's felled a couple of them, but they've downed that squat there. Looks like they've got a space marine as well, but it's just brilliant. There is so much detail here to enjoy. There are orcs everywhere. Squats desperately fighting them back. I love it. Everything about it is so Oldhammer, so Rogue Trader. There's so much character. There are so many squats. It's just brilliant. So thank you so much, Citadel Miniatures Painting Guide. Thank you so much for joining me, and we'll see you next time. Bye bye.